So it's interesting how a lot of people put it on like the head area. So if you'd like to come up and share why you placed your hand in a specific area, you're welcome to. The whole point of this was to show that in this world we have a lot of similarities and differences. And I think where we feel the pain, how we feel it, even though the reason might be drastically different from somebody else's, it affects us in the same way. And usually we feel it most like in our hearts, in our brains, or even like over the mouth. We don't feel like anybody else can understand us. But really, looking at this example, there is something that we all have in common. And I feel that showing it like this, in a way where you can collaborate and feel like it's more personal by using your own hand, it really shows that there is a connection between one another. So, anybody would like to come up and share? No pressure though.
Just to also add on, that even if you don't have your hand placed specifically up here where a lot of other people's place is, all of this stuff all starts with within one place, which is your brain. And so it's always a process to develop these feelings, or exactly how to feel specifically about no matter what you've been through. So like for example with me, I've placed mine more on my shoulder going onto my back area because, as we discussed, I feel like even though I am aware of the things that go on around me, I feel like I'm still vulnerable in a way to that backside based on situations that I've been going through throughout my life and all the way up until now. Even within the past year of school, it's been a rough ride. And I just feel like it can even resemble to just me adjusting how I'm sitting in a chair. Fixing my position, just trying to, in a way, strengthen my back. It's that vulnerable side that I'm not so comfortable with. And it's something I would just like to work on, not just now, but just throughout the rest of my life. But if anyone would like to come up and share why they placed their hand in one, that is totally up to you. You don't have to, of course.
It's okay to take a long pause. Sometimes it takes, in education, we call it the cigarette break.
Yes. I'll do it.
Go for it.
I choose mine right here because I'm always an overthinker. Like there's a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I always want to think the future, like how is the future is gonna affect, what's going on right now. So that's why I always second guess myself or think like, am I doing good at work or doing good in school, like, or if I'm missing something, and then from me doing that, I kind of like push people away that I don't have friends sometimes that they don't want to hang out with me because they'd be like, oh, you like too busy on your schedule, you don't want to hang out or whatever. So that's why I always put it there because like it's just too much in my head and I don't know how to communicate sometimes with friends like, hey, I have stuff to do, or to say, oh, you just don't want to hang out with us, which is not true. I do want to hang out, but just there's so much going on and that's what affected me.
Sounds like he describes a mental space that a lot of us are in this week. Because look at all those hands right there. Did anybody else identify with that feeling? Yeah, me too. Did anybody else put their hand there for that a similar reason, or yeah? Can you tell us a little bit about it, Jordan?
I guess like besides like mental exhaustion, I guess it also like relates to the constant like wrestling of just like thoughts within my head as well, and how I'm able to kind of like adjust to kind of overcome those maybe like thoughts of like if I'm doing things right, and what I can better in a sense as well.
So the inner critic, right?
Yeah.
That we all have that When I was teaching younger kids, I used to say, imagine you have an angel on your shoulder and a devil on your shoulder. You know, like cartoons, because kids will watch cartoons, and I go, yeah, and say, okay, you know, just listen to the side that says, you can do it, always believe in yourself, and tell the other side that's saying, you know, that's just to ignore that side. And but it's really hard unless somebody kind of sees it from the outside and asks you or talks to you about it. Otherwise, you get really wrapped up in the louder of the two voices in your head. And a lot of times the more negative voice really can become overwhelming and overpowering. And that comes from so many places. It can come from stress, right? But it also can come from like a post-traumatic stress, so something that goes back into a memory in your mind where you heard those words and you bring them back to yourself. So it's, in some ways, that, you know, we can accidentally re-victimize ourselves when we get stuck in those brain loops, right, of criticism, because they're often rooted in a memory that we have of some lived pain, and that's true for our students, right? And we don't always know what somebody might be feeling, but it might be for a day they're very anxious and in their head and not even really with us, right? And a lot of people have been in that space this week, and that can make it hard to do well on exams, right?
Definitely plays a big role when it comes to finals.
Yeah. And one thing can trigger the other. So the stress can trigger the state, right? And then can trigger the stress that triggers the state. Like it just keeps going. And so it's really powerful to know that about yourself, that there are times when it's going to happen really regularly. And so when you recognize the voice starting, it's like, oh, you know, hello darkness, my old friends, you know? You kind of, it becomes funny, or almost to yourself, like, oh, here we go again, right? When I do yoga, I always ask the teachers now not to adjust me. And in one particular part of my body, which is right here, because I will immediately burst into tears if somebody touches me without me knowing from behind right there. I'll start crying. And I had no idea one of the first times I took a yoga class, they come up and ask you if you can do an adjustment on your back sometimes. And one teacher put their hands just a little too low for me, and without me knowing that I was carrying this intense anxiety right there, my body knew, and I just flooded with tears. So to my yoga teacher's credit, she's talked to me after class and apologized, and said, you know, it's completely common that happens to people that carry pain in this particular area, and I'm so sorry I felt like I violated your boundaries. And she was really careful with me. And she said, have you ever asked that part of your body what's hurting and why it's hurting? And I did, you know. And the answer I got back was, and she said, can I guess? If you don't have to tell me, but can I guess? And I said, yeah. And she said, did somebody sexually assault you? And I said, yes, that's what happened to me. And she said, that's extremely common, that somebody will feel vulnerable right here in particular, and that their body, that's where they hold their tension, because that's their fear of the re-attack. And so if you can relax that, you can relax your hips, you can relax the rest of your body, because otherwise it's literally controlling you from behind. It's very, very empowering to know that. It was really scary. But now when I go to yoga class, I'll say, please don't touch me. You know, and it's okay, because I just don't feel like having that experience in front of a bunch of people that I don't know. And it's something that if I privately need to do it, I know how to do it myself, right? So it's for me. And I think that there's a real healing that can happen if we can go to that memory, that place, and that feeling, and then just really look at it. It can be a lot, though. What would be, did anybody else get a different feeling from their hand positioned up high? Go ahead, Diana, and then Monica. Yeah, sure.
So I put mine on the head too. Initially because I kind of relate to her where it's like an overthinking problem, but for me, I placed it there because I grew up with my parents being kind of not talking about emotions, more like what can I learn, like the whole teaching, like anything I can improve in. So like I feel like that has affected me a lot in terms of my heart and like my decisions. Like I have trouble enjoying things and letting myself be happy because my brain's constantly telling me like, well, why this, why that. So I put it there because I want to be better about that so that I can enjoy stuff and focus on this next. But yeah, to me that's kind of what I thought of when you guys presented this.
Did you want to share yours too, Monica?
Yeah, so mine is similar to yours. But also mine has a twist. So at school, at work, you name it, I've always been like harassed and touched there, and it's always like my butt, like stop looking at my butt. You're old enough to be my dad, like so gross. And I was out in Hollywood one night, and like the thing about like when you go out, like people just like touch you, and it's uncomfortable. But I don't know. I guess I was like 22 and fed up, and this guy like grabbed my ass, and like he commented like how nice it was, and I turned around, and I know this isn't nice, but I turned around, and I grabbed him by his dick and balls, and I twisted.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
But
I'm sure you felt a lot better.
I took my power back.
That was one way to resolve the issue.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just interesting to see, like, I mean, I think that, you know, this, for the anxiety, inner self-critic, like what you're describing, right, frantic or nervous or anxious or just separated from the body, right, so that the head is completely separated and you almost don't feel anything, right, so it's weirdly bad, and then here it's almost like we're so in the body that we stop thinking. We stop thinking and we act, you know, you punch or you kick or you scream or you freeze, right? Your body, it's like a whole body reaction.
you squeeze and twist.
Right, squeeze and twist, right? Well, you do go, it's fight or flight, right? You go to fight or flight mode. And so you went to fight and you're not even thinking rationally when you're in that space, you're just ready to fight. But that freezing, right, when it happens here, is your whole body, right? So it's interesting because I think a lot of the anxiety that people are carrying with them right now is certainly due to the time we're living through and we're living in. And then, so we have no connection here to our body. And then when we do have connections, violent, right? So much of the like way that people experience sexuality in our culture initially for the first time is through pretty violent images of sex, right? It's not necessarily like what we would imagine holding hands and walking into this, you know, it's not sipping chocolate sodas at the corner store, right? It's pretty intense. And so there's a big disconnection between head and heart and body in our culture right now. And it's probably unprecedented in human history because we've never had such a crowded mental space, ever. I mean, like, I was on my phone checking texts, watching my iPad and drawing in my sketchbook yesterday, and I thought, like, what am I doing? You know, like, I can't possibly be doing any of these things well. And yet I'm still doing that all the time because we're just really in this intense, because it's finals week and you guys might need me, so I need to check my phone. So my phone is next to my bed. And my family doesn't like it very much, but there's a lot of, well, that's my job, and it's always there, right? It's always here. You're a student, how many times do you check Canvas a day? You can see throughout the year, like when nobody's checking, and then when everybody's like panicking and checking over and over and over again, you know, towards the end or around the middle, when people are thinking about midterms and finals, it makes sense, right? When you get notifications, those things pop up and your anxiety level spikes. There's just a lot going on here. I'm curious about this, the heart. Put this right on that heart.
Oh, that was mine.
That's yours?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit? You don't have to be on camera.
It's just really basic stuff. It's just like I always tell myself I have a black heart, and then I'm trying to gain control to get like a healthy way of saying it. I know it's the mind and all, but like for me, I always seem as I'm like dark person, but I'm not really not. But my mind tells me I am. So I'm trying to like control over my heart. It's like you're not that way. Just sort of like that.
To let yourself be open-hearted?
Yeah, but I can't.
I'd say I don't know, I think you kind of melted a little.
Yeah, I felt I did melt a bit, Like the ice heart melted a bit here. I felt it. I'm glad though. I'm getting there, but like that's my main concern
Yeah.
throughout my experience.
That's beautiful though. It's great that you were able to express that because that is the beginning of that, right?
Can I comment? I think
Sure.
it's interesting that you chose a warm color.
Oh yeah.
And not
I just chose it because red is my favorite color.
I wanted to say something also in regards to mine, but I was actually gonna bring that up color-wise. So I kind of already talked about like my back area being a bit vulnerable, but also my shoulder area. I grew up in a family where, as well, it's hard to express emotions, and especially, at least from my perspective in an African American home, it's, you know, I remember when I would cry and stuff as a child, because I was like a very strong mama boy, but when I would cry as a child and stuff, it was never comfort. It was always questioning why you're crying. It's like you have clothes on your back, food in the fridge, a roof over your head, shoes on your feet. There's nothing for you to be crying about. And, or men don't cry and all this other stuff. And it's like, to me, it sounds like a lot as just more of excuses. And the older I got, the more I kind of, after someone who was always reaching out for help, even if it wasn't from family, and it was people who I may have thought were my friends at the time, it always ended up in me being let down in the process, unfortunately. And around probably like my high school years, like junior year of high school until now on, I kind of like, in a way, shut that side off of me of reaching out for help, because I always kind of had that feeling that, oh, well, I'm going to be let down as someone who's an overthinker as well. The moment that one thought comes into my mind, it starts to develop more and more, and the feelings start to get stronger. And now I'm at a point where, with close friends, if they are to touch me, it's kind of a bit similar to yours, but it has the opposite meaning, where if they touch me on my shoulder, I kind of get like, you know, my anxiety starts to rise, but when I notice who it is, I'm like, okay, well, this is, yeah, it starts to relax me. That's kind of one reason why I chose the color blue as well, because like it's a cool sensation. But then when it's like someone who I really don't know like that it's not really blue anymore. It turns red. Like this is a hot burning sensation. Like please, like back off. I don't know you like that. I don't know why you're touching me. And there was one situation where a friend had actually grabbed me by my shoulder and told me like, hey, calm down. And it wasn't even a situation where I didn't think, at least, no one could tell that I was nervous or my anxiety was rising and stuff. And I remember I ended up breaking down into tears, but out of a good sensation, good feeling, because it's like it's someone who actually has acknowledged something that I'm going through without me being able to express those feelings through tears. And he's my best. We met in college, but at my old CC, but it was just like, it was a really good feeling when you realize that there's someone who cares enough to watch your emotions and your actions to see if, hey, are they actually doing okay, without me having to go on my way and tell them, when it's always been me having to reach out for someone's help. And it just feels like it's in the opposite
So you
sense
could
now.
reveal your feelings. You had like an intense empathy for what you were experiencing, and he wanted you to know that he could see you.
Yeah.
That's really powerful. Acknowledgement is very powerful. Yeah, like, and sometimes the feeling of acknowledgement is so intense that we feel like an instant connection or a friendship, or we create a history almost in our minds for that person. And when it happens, it's a really amazing feeling. So, it doesn't happen that many times in your life, but when it does, you know it.
It doesn't, and it's like when I realized where he got that from, when I first met his mom. I remember the first time like I hugged his mom, and I was going through something like crazy at that time. And I don't think I've ever felt such a warmth in a hug, but I remember I just ended up like breaking down right there in front of his family. And I kind of like just thought about it and was like, this, like, he gets this from his mom, and he's definitely been passed down.
Sometimes the connection connections like kind of nonverbal even too. Like I find that I'm able to empathize with you, Diana, whether you know it or not, because I was a DJ in college. I mean, we've never really talked about that before, but I see a lot of similarities in the way you express yourself in class, and I remember feeling a lot of the things that you express in school. And so much so that I've invented this thing that you're in my class next semester, and I keep sending you emails like you're in my class. I keep sticking her in the group for the 499, and I'm like, oh my God, why am I doing that? And it's because I strongly have this connection that's like I see myself, so I imagine I'm going to be in that class next semester. But how weird is that? Yeah, I think you're going to wind up being in that class. But that's like an instant connection. I'm like, oh. And there's a humanity sometimes that we see in each other that can be instant like that. That's such a wonderful feeling. And I'll tell you too, the more you stay in educational environments, the more times that happens. You know, you have more friendships like that, memories like that. You know, and it's an amazing thing because you realize how truly connected we all are if we can feel with each other. You know, it expands your ability to feel to do that. Anybody else want to share where they put their hands? We can also move on to talking about how, if they were going to teach this again, what could they do to make it even better? And what was really good about this activity as a social practice activity, because I think it would be a wonderful activity for us to do at the beginning of the semester next semester for the next group of students coming in. So we can imagine ourselves as giving these teachers feedback for how they might come in and do this next semester. What feedback could we offer them? Or you can just continue to share your stories too.
We've already discussed, but next time I think we could definitely just make a backside, just to obviously have those placements of us meant to be on the specific spots that just kind of allows more for a conversation to start or open up between others.
Right.
I think what might help is incorporating something, like you know how you said you put blue because you wanted to show like that cool. I would somehow tie an emotion to a color when they pick, so that for people who don't feel comfortable speaking the part, they can at least feel like if I put blue and I was sad and I put it on the heart, like people would know, or at least I would know I did that as a way of projecting it.
And tapping into deeper feelings.
Right, without necessarily
Sure.
coming up and talking about it, because I know that's really, really hard for a lot of people. They kind of just freeze. I feel like that's kind of like them putting their message, like how you person might help.
To the message.
And sometimes people, when you shut things up, you don't think you have anything to say, but you can make a decision between this or that. And so there's always a reason why, and that can be a beginning of that deeper questioning. Is why did I feel? You know, and so that's helps people to drop down into how you can tap more deeply into your emotions. That's a great suggestion. It's letting people pick their colors, having front side and back side. What about at the very beginning? How could they start off the lessons so that we had good cues about what was expected from us as students? Where were we confused in the beginning? I was a little confused in the beginning, so. What did you guys think? Because we're just trying to, it's already good. We know it's good because we had a long discussion, right? So now we're trying to talk about how to make it like we could present it at conference. Or we could present it to staff. Yes?
I mean, I would say just making sure that you have everybody's attention before you talk, so that way not one person is getting left out of the conversation. Because what I notice is, especially when we're talking in our own groups, we tend to get loud and talk over whoever's trying to talk. So making sure that people can recognize, oh, this person's up there and they're trying to talk, and just giving them the space to talk, because it can lead for clear instructions, and maybe even having